Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming to our cafe. We're just going to give it a couple minutes to allow people to register, or not register, but log in. We'll get started in a minute or two. Thank you. We'll give it one more minute for people to transition to their lunch hour, and then we'll get started. Thank you for coming. All right, I think we can get started. My name is Ted Hafner, and I will be the moderator for today's cafe. The title of the cafe is Wisconsin's Farmer-Led Watershed Councils and Lessons for Illinois. We have a great panel. Tara Dawn is the coordinator for Wisconsin Farmers Union Farmer-Led Watershed Council. Tony Pyrick is the lead for the Dodge County Wisconsin Farm Watershed Council. And then Michael Woods is the CEO of the Association of Illinois Soil and Water Conservation Districts. Before I turn it over to them and give a quick context, I'd like to appreciate our sponsors. Because trees are important to equity as well as to human health, this CWA Cafe is supported by the U.S. Forest Service and the Illinois Department of Natural Resources Urban and Community Forestry Program, as well as the Forest Preserves of Cook County. The funding supports workshops and trainings like this so the Alliance can help more communities improve urban tree canopy forests across the region, including through participation in Tree City USA. These institutions are an equal opportunity provider. That, I think we can go to the next slide, please. Now, if you want to put on your own cafe, you come to us with ideas. There's links on our website, and this basically tells you how to do it. You can work with Laura on your cafe ideas. We support you. The Alliance supports and works with you to create a topic and carve out your presentation. So if you're interested, please see our website and follow these links for registration forms, and then we can get rolling. Next slide, please. All right, so I'm going to give a quick overview of the context for this cafe. In the Chicago Wilderness Alliance geography, we have about 4.4 million acres of agriculture. And you can see that in this map with the brown, not much in the city, but you can see especially as we get outside into the more rural areas, it is predominantly farming. Next slide, please. We will also be talking about water today. In the Chicago Watershed region, or Wilderness Alliance region, we have mapped our watersheds, and you can see as you get closer to downtown Chicago, the water quality is way less robust. And as you get out into the rural areas, north, south, east, and west, the watersheds actually become much better. And we know this because this is EPA data. So we're going to talk about water and ag today, and the voluntary contributions that farmers can make towards water quality and what's going on in Wisconsin, and how Illinois can perhaps learn some of these lessons and takeaways. Next slide, please. So why is this important? Well, historically, before our diversion, we had water that flowed into Lake Michigan, and we had water that flowed down to the Illinois, the Mississippi, and the Gulf of Mexico. Because of the diversion here in the 1900s, we now impact two waterways, the Great Lakes and the Gulf of Mexico. And you can see this over here in this graphic on the right. The cities do offer quite a bit of nutrient loading, nitrogen and phosphorus to the watersheds, but so do the farms, and that's what we're going to talk about today is voluntarily working on curbing some of those nitrogen and phosphorus releases through voluntary programs like we're going to hear about in a moment. Next slide, please, and this will be my last. So why do we look to Wisconsin to do this? In my experience, we look to them because they're actually pretty progressive. In my life as a landscape architect, many lives ago, I worked on a comprehensive plan for the city of Milwaukee. That was very forward thinking of the time. The 15, 20 years ago, the state mandated cities over 100,000 population to create a comprehensive master plan, or the state would do it for them. That's sort of the idea that we're looking at here today, this sort of voluntary carrot and stick led model. Also, the city of Milwaukee and Wisconsin is looking into beavers to help stormwater and watersheds and wetlands do their job and become sponges. And then lastly, this image on the right, you will hear from Tara about a little bit more. And with that, I hope this brings you enough context to really understand and dive into what we're talking about today. Tara, you're up. Take it away, please.
All right, here I go. So thank you, Ted, for that context placement. So we both shared the same map, which is fortuitous. So the map I have enlarged here is a map of Wisconsin's farmer-led watershed councils. We say producer-led. Sometimes I prefer farmer-led because it just sounds less pretentious to me. So these groups are across the state, as you can see, getting funding from the Department of Ag, Trade, and Consumer Protection, which is our Department of Ag in Wisconsin, but it's actually a very small amount of funding. So for the entire state, there is $1 million budgeted, and the farmers are doing with that some pretty impressive things. So to jump right in, the next slide. Oh, yes. So that little circle there in red is actually my, if you want to go back, is actually the 4 that I work with primarily. So I'm based in Northwestern Wisconsin. I'm actually the regional coordinator for the Northwestern groups, but primarily my day-to-day job is working with 4 different small groups. We work at the Huck 12 scale, so it's a pretty small scale for the most part. And I'll get into what exactly a farmer-led council is. Next slide. So the minimum requirements for a farmer-led council, honestly, any group of farmers could get together and start doing a lot of the work that we do. But if you want to be able to receive the grant funding through the Department of Ag, Trade, and Consumer Protection, or DATCAP, they require you to have 5 farmers who are actively farming and within the same geographic area, roughly. If they are farther apart, basically they just do a larger watershed. So like I said, the groups I work with are Huck 12s, but we actually have some farm areas that are doing much larger watersheds. They'll go to a whole county for their watershed group, or we even have one group just called Western Wisconsin Conservation Council. So the size is very flexible in what the farmers care to create. The other minimum requirement that's required by the program is a collaborating partner. Very commonly, that collaborating partner is a local land conservation office through the counties, and that's been very effective to provide kind of the long-term coordination, technical assistance side of things, and helps the farmers have someone in the room consistently who knows how grant working goes and can help do the hand-holding through the reporting process. We do have some groups who don't prefer to work with a government entity, so they'll actually work with a dairy business association, the Farm Bureau. I am actually a staff person for the Wisconsin Farmers Union, but we act in partnership with our land conservation departments for the groups that I work with. Next slide. So I have a very small amount of time that they wanted me to throw all this information out. So I wanted to throw out really why our farmers choose to do these farmer-led councils, because I think most people would agree when they're trying to do conservation on the land, the biggest challenge is getting voluntary adoption and actually getting people to care about this. So I wanted to talk about why our farmers actually do show up and what brings them to the table. So when I ask our farmers who have been doing this for 10 years, we started in 2013, why exactly they're there, the number one thing that I hear from farmers is they want to learn and network from other farmers. So I say, what brings you back? You're coming to these meetings every 2 months for many years now. Why do you keep coming? They say, oh, it's just nice to know what other people are doing. And you can't just fall behind, and you can go to all the sales pitch meetings that you want, but really learning from other farmers is the best way to go. The second most common answer I get from farmers is actually just the soil health argument. So many times when I say, what got you here, they will point to a specific event. I got 6 inches of rain in 3 hours in 2017, and I will not let my fields look like that again. So the motivation to actually improve their farms is a huge part of it. Another thing that comes up when we're talking to farmers is I have heard many times farmers say that farmers have a target on their back, that the consumer or non-farming public often, when there's a problem, they point to farmers and blame them. And the farmers felt like as individuals, it was very difficult to explain, I'm actually doing quite a bit of investment in conservation on my farm, but that always just sounded like a one-off or overly defensive. So they realized that if they were working together, coordinating as a group of farmers, showing how they were able to do it and being able to tell their story in an organized way, and actually making more progress because they were working as a group, that they felt they were able to control the narrative a little bit more and to communicate with the public in a more organized way. So those three things really bring a lot of farmers to the table. The last one, you can see I have it in smaller font because it doesn't come up very often. But sometimes when we do work with farmers who, if you hear someone saying conservation or sustainability, their hackles might rise immediately. So we often, when working with those kinds of partners, we come to them saying, hey, we know that that regulation can be difficult to deal with, and nobody likes more bureaucracy for the sake of bureaucracy. So if we can admit that there is a challenge to our ecosystem here. So we have some polluted water, we've gotten some well waters with high nitrate tests. We need to come up with a way to solve that problem before someone in Madison or Washington, D.C. tries to solve it for you. And so many farmers like the idea of taking control of this problem before the control is taken away from them. And that's a pretty common thing, not very common, but it's something that's kind of in the back of the minds of some folks. And it comes up when we're talking to new farmers who are less excited about these ideas at the top. Next slide. The other thing I wanted to say about the way that these councils are structured, there are 47 different councils in Wisconsin, and they're all structured just slightly differently because the program's extremely flexible. As you saw, the minimum requirements are pretty minimal. But the real goal that most of the councils are working under is the idea of collaboration over compromise. So we tend to think of compromise as a good thing, but if you think about what compromise actually means, it means giving up something that you want so that you can come to an agreement. And we really don't want the farmers to feel like they have to give something up in order to protect the environment. So we really, really work in win-win scenarios. The example that I use, which is the pumpkin one, which is very timely most of the time when I'm giving these presentations, is if you have a pumpkin and you have two people who want the pumpkin. I've got two daughters, let's say they both want a pumpkin. And I say, okay, well, I've only got one pumpkin, so I'm just going to King Solomon it. I'm going to cut the pumpkin in half. Then each kid says, well, actually, I wanted to make a pie and I needed a whole pumpkin for this. So I didn't get what I wanted. And the other kid says, well, actually, I wanted to do granola bars. And so I needed the seeds. So I didn't get what I wanted either for my recipe. So in the compromise situation, nobody actually gets what they want. Whereas if we had taken an extra minute to talk about what everybody actually wanted from this, we would find that one could have the rind of the pumpkin and one could have the seeds, and everybody could have benefited. And you might say, well, that's kind of a mamby-pamby thing and it's not very realistic. But frankly, none of our farmers want to be polluting water or to have a degraded resource. And none of our public hates the idea of getting food locally and having a thriving rural economy. So when we know that everybody actually wants the same thing, we just try to come at it with a spirit of collaboration much more than we do with compromises. And that comes from, the foundation of our principles to creating win-win situations into the logistical running of our meetings. So for my council specifically, the 4 that I work with, we don't even hold votes. We don't have an overwhelming board structure. There are definitely groups who do that. I think Tony's does, but the decision-making process is much more based on collaboration and taking everybody into account, not about outvoting somebody who might not get what they want. Next slide. And now I'm going to really fly because I'm running out of time. But here are a few things that we do. So we do large educational events. We've had Ray Archuleta, Rick Clark, Lance Gunderson came to our region on the 31st of January just to talk about, the big regenerative agriculture ideas. Next slide. We also use, these are really minimally funded for us, but we do field events and we try to be really efficient with our costs here, bringing the farmers out to the field to talk and work and get their hands in the soil and look at the crops and really see the difference that soil health practices bring on. So we do that all season. As you can see, we've got early spring, midsummer, and late summer that we are out in the field with farmers talking to them. Next slide. We also do a fair amount of local research and demonstrations. So by having the farmers network together and put in longer term networks that are really invested in soil health, we've actually been able to develop long-term test plot projects. So on the right side there, you can see our test plot at Horse Creek, which is doing a 5-way triplicate of comparing tillage and cover crop standards against conventional standards. And we have been doing rainwater infiltration tests and yield analysis for that. And we're going into our 10th season there. And we have other much smaller test plots also all over the state from farmers doing comparisons. Next slide. And then the other thing that we do, as I said, being able to communicate with the public, we do a fair amount of that. So on the left side there, you can see Brad Peterson in River Falls talking to the UW students about the future of farming and why he takes the time to invest in soil health. On the upper right side, one of our farmers actually took a local lake association out and behind his tractor, he took them through a buffer strip to show them how exactly farm management can look to benefit the lake. And then we do a Soil Your Undies contest, and then we bring that show on the road to local events. So on the middle there, you can see one of my farmers standing at a dairy breakfast with our booth of underwear there to talk about soil health and degradation. Next slide. And then I guess the next question people have is it making a difference? So our group started in 2013. Polk County has graciously, bless their hearts, gone out on the road, and every farm field that they can see from a road within the watershed, they've tracked whether they're seeing cover crops and no-till on those fields. Over time, it is slow, but we are seeing an increase. And in Horse Creek watershed, we are about twice the Midwestern average rate for adoption. I know Tony's doing a lot more work. He'll have much more exciting numbers, but we are seeing growth, and we are seeing that growth be higher than we're seeing in the Midwestern average. And next slide. And then the 2022 DAC report did show we do very, very limited reporting parameters because, again, we're all about flexibility with the program, but we do see hundreds of thousands of acres and reductions across the state because of these programs that are specifically so this is just the incentivized acres that our farmers are doing. So these are much lower payment rates than an EQIP contract, for example. But I would say that they are also underreporting very significantly because many of our farmers don't report all of their acres because they don't want to take payment and remove that opportunity for another farmer in the neighborhood. And also many go on to take other resources that they didn't know about before their farmer-led councils. So we do see an expanded or amplified impact from the groups. Next slide. So I wanted to just highlight what we find to be really different and effective about the program. So it's very cost efficient. Like I said, the whole program is only $1 million through the DAC cap of what's available to the the farmer-led councils, and they are really resourceful and unique in the way that they are able to turn those dollars into actual conservation. So when we look at what our cost per nitrogen per pound of reduction, it is often closer, it's under $20 per pound of reduction, which is very, very low compared to what we're seeing in other programs. We're also seeing more voluntary and lasting practice adoption at the community level, and that's our real goal. These are going slowly and carefully because we're not forcing the farmers to enter into a contract that they might be upset with, and so it gets them frustrated when they drop off the practices after their 5-year contract is done. What we're trying to do is work really slowly and build those trust and have all of the pragmatic questions answered because they're working with other farmers who are aware of how this goes. Because we do have some follow through and reporting requirements, but the bar compared to a lot of other grants that you can work with is very low in terms of regulation and reporting feedback. And because of that, we're really flexible. So if our farmers find that one program isn't working or something exciting is right on the horizon, they can change their program and work on that within 2 months versus the barge ship that many other programs have to do to change from top to bottom, because every farmer-led council is allowed to pursue what they're interested in and engaged in. They're able to really switch around their funding and do exciting programs very quickly. And we've had several other organizations just delighted and surprised by how quickly we're able to try something new that they would have to otherwise get a lot more say so from different people before they could try at a small scale. And next slide. My contact information is here. If anybody wants to reach out to me at any point, you can take a screenshot of that. We maintain a website for the 4 councils that I work with at farmerledwatershed.org, where you can see our incentive applications that are available within our watersheds every year, as well as a little bit of information on each one. And we also maintain a Facebook page so people can find us and keep up to date with what we're doing. So I think I went over my 7-minute limit, so I hope I'm pretty close though. And I think we're taking questions after everybody speaks.
That's right. Thank you, Tara. And next up, we have Tony Pyrick. Tony, you're up. Take it away.
Okay, just a second here. We'll get our presentation here. Okay, I'm gonna introduce myself. My name is Tony Pyrick. I'm a dairy farmer with my brother here in South Central Wisconsin. We're a dairy, cash grain, 1,100 acres, and we've been doing regenerative conservation, no-till, cover crops for over 15 years now, 20 years, and doing a very regenerative farm. I'm also the leader of Dodge County Farmers. This is our logo we came up with. It's very, out of all of our groups in our state, we always come up with a logo, or that's your kind of your logo sign that you kind of highlight on the stuff you do and everything, and build your group off of that. Okay, next slide. Oops. And like I say, Tara had that one before. It's the 24. There are 47 different watershed groups in the state of Wisconsin. As you can see, there's been a lot of growth every year now. We're up to 47. So it's very important here in Wisconsin, and shows where all our watershed groups are located in Wisconsin. So, okay. And like I say, in our Dodge County group, we started in 2017. The initial start of it was I got involved with a non-point source work group in 2015 at the lake associations here in our county. There's 3 lakes. They want to impose some restrictions on the farmers to reduce the phosphorus sediment runoff in their lakes. So they came up with this non-point source work group that was involved with, I was one of the 5 farmers that was pulled in on it because I was one of the leading farmers in our county that did a lot of work. And so the group met for a year. There was lake associations, DNR, Fish and Wildlife, farmers, Land Conservation Department, and NRCS people, and to come up with a solution on trying to help curb this. So what we've done over the years, we have our meetings, we do a lot of educational events. We have the first event is always a Soil Health Expo, and it's the annual event. The next one's a pre-plant workshop we do in the spring and help the farmers get them together and help them set up their planters for the no-till situation. And then in August, we have a field day, planting covers after weed or covers that we're going to do in the summer. And then in the fall, we had a cover crop showcase in October. So, and then we have a plot set up where there's different cover crops planted in early August after wheat. And then we show the farmers, and also we invite lake people to come out. and we show them what covers are, and what we're actually, the covers look like. They don't really realize what covers are, what they look like in the field. They look like weeds to them. So we help them understand what covers are doing for them. So, and then in return, they gotta come to that cover crop showcase, and we have a social event after that, a bar and restaurant. Have some good communications with the Lake Association people, and then get some, feedback from them and get some input from them. Okay. This is one of our field days. We have good turnout on one of the field days, get some machinery out there, show the farmers how to do the conservation practice, how to plant the covers. And the equipment dealers like to come out and bring equipment. So it's always a good draw for farmers to come to it, and they get some interest in it, and we can get them in there to draw. They have some educational events. And like I say, we partner with the lake associations. Actually, we got another group that's called the Dodge County Alliance Group, which involves lake people and other community people, and they meet too also and work with us as farmers. So one of the things we do during the summer is one of the lakes pick out every year. Out of 3 lakes, we go back and forth, and then we have pontoon ride. They've got to take farmers out. We get a nice lunch and beer and pizza and stuff, and they got to take us out on their pontoons and show us what they're doing around their lake and restoring their lake shorelines, and helping us too. It's just not the farmers polluting, it's the lake associations are also part of the whole problem too. They got to realize that, and that's what really helped us out here over the years to work with everybody. And it's a community involvement. Everybody's responsible. We don't, not just saying that the farmers are the blame. We've got it out there for everybody's responsible for, helping control the problems we got in our lakes and our waters. And like I say, we're a 501c3 nonprofit charitable organization. We set that up, and we got a monthly board meetings every Thursday of every month we meet. We're able to, in our county, we've got a coffee shop that one of our soil consultants' wives own, and we got a place to meet every month there, and they support us quite heavily in what we do. So monthly board meetings are pretty important. We get a lot of input. Got a good board of directors that's really helped us over the years. Get a lot of, but mostly all farmers. We do have some consultants, and land conservation always helps us with this here too. So like I say, today I got Jared Winter here with us. He's been a land conservation supporting person with us, and done a lot for us over the years. It's always good to work with your land con. Farmers like to do it, and try to do it all ourselves, but you always need that extra support and help from the land conservation department. This is one of our flyers we sent out for our annual event. Like Tara says, they do a lot. Get some nationwide speakers to come in, get the farmers to go. We create some really nice invites, get them out there to people. That's part of the important thing you need to do. Get the people aware of what you're doing, get them there to come, and it also helps to for participation. So, and like I say, in our group, we got our own little tent. We got a Dodge County Farmers pop-up tent. We go to the local county fairs. We got dairy breakfast in the farms we set up. So you were quite visible. That's one thing that need to do with your group. If it's visible, you can always talk to a few farmers. You can tell them what you're trying to do. They come and ask questions. We got that support banner there, as you see, that explains our group a little bit. And it's just you got to get out and be visible with the farmers, and work, try to be at some events and just be there. I mean, everybody asks me how we can get participation more and more. You get the early adopters in right away, but the other farmers that aren't doing actually on the field or work in the field with the covers and that, a lot of times need some information or need to see a little extra push. So that tent, we're kind of proud of. We get it around there, and our logo's on there. So you create your own logo, and everybody gives you an identity that we're kind of proud of. So, and again, this is some of our cover crops that we use. We got some cover crop programs. We got one of the programs we pay $20 incentive payment to put covers on 100 acres max for the first year. Then we got a $40 a pound phosphorus savings per year. We pay $40 a pound for phosphorus saving payment, and that is done on a nutrient management plan. If you put covers in, and that, there's certain savings and phosphorus runoff that you won't have. And then also we got a grazing management cost share too, $1,000 per written plan that we wrote in, and we're trying to help with the grazers too. And also we got a planting green incentive, which is $30 an acre up to a certain max. Like I say, this is myself here planting green. Here's going to the cereal rye that got quite tall. So it does all work. So the practices do work. You got to kind of help show the people and the community, and with just our group itself has been very supportive and getting the word out and everything. So, and like I say, here's our part of our grazing that we do. That you're going to see more and more of that, because farmers can get that a niche into the grazing for either dairy cattle and or beef, and they got a market for their beef as a, selling out there. It makes it a lot better, profitability for farmers, and it's nice to see the cows back out on the land. So that's pretty important too, to bring the grazing back in, even though they're pushing for more and more grain and beef, your grain crops. We still need the cattle. Cattle should be out there, and we need that. Your marketing, on-farm marketing helps the farmers quite a bit. So, and this is a picture of our group. Quite proud of it. Your logo and your identity is always quite important in our farm groups across. Everybody's got their own logo and identities, which is always fun to have. Like I say, last week, Tuesday, we had our annual DATCAP farm meeting, which we had all 47 groups represented there. The new one started up this year, presented on what they're all doing. It's been quite interesting to see the different variety of practices that they're all trying to do out there. So it's been a lot of fun. It's an interesting concept that DATCAP put together here in the state. You heard what Tara does up there. We're a good supportive group throughout the state, and I know it can happen anywhere. Once you got to get it going, and the support from DATCAP was very important here for us to get the initial funding going to get our group going. So get that. So, and like I say, if there's after a while, we'll be here for questions. We do have, this is our, in my email, my phone number. Jared Winter here's with me. He's our land con that's helped us quite a bit. If you got any questions, after a while, we'll take them, or if you got a snapshot, call me anytime about anything. I'm glad to come down or talk. And I know right now I'm talking to Memphis, Tennessee. Down there, a professor is doing a study on why farmers aren't adapting this soil health practice and that. And I've been also talked to state of Oregon had called me already, and they're looking at trying to start farm groups up too. So, Illinois, you aren't the only ones out there looking for this and kind of modeling something after us here in Wisconsin.
Thank you, Tony. That was a fantastic presentation, and a little I like that nudge for support at the end to show that we're not alone, right? Thank you for that.
Well, they're all after it. They're trying, and we're just, I don't know, we're just lucky here in Wisconsin. Starting in 2015, did I think we were going to have this participation? No. Once you get it going, it will continue. Excellent.
Well, now it's time to hear from the Illinois side and how we're trying to incorporate some of these ideas. Michael, take it away, please.
Thank you so much, Ted, and thank you to the Chicago Wilderness Alliance for hosting this wonderful opportunity to share some new initiatives that are taking place both in Wisconsin, but how we're trying to replicate these opportunities here in the state of Illinois. And so when we start thinking about this, many people often think, why is it that we need to be thinking about soil and water conservation? As Ted noted, I am with the Association of Illinois Soil and Water Conservation Districts, in which we represent 97 soil and water conservation districts across the state of Illinois. And those soil and water conservation districts have been actively, vibrantly supporting elements to protect our soil, make sure that we have healthy soil, clean water since 1940s. And I'll give you a little statement that in 1936 1937, February 26, coming close to this date, President FDR sent a letter to every state governor and said that we need to establish soil and water conservation districts across this great state in response to what was happening out of the Dust Bowl, the Depression year, and so forth, and what was happening to the agricultural sector. And so he said that in that letter, he said, basically, the nation that destroys its soil destroys itself. It put in motion this very strong, vibrant call to action that we need to have these entities to support producers to basically ensure that our vibrant agricultural sector continues to serve the needs. In Illinois, it's the #1 industry. We have 32 million acres of land across this great state, of which 27 million of those acres are dedicated to agricultural production. And within that 27 million, 23 million are dedicated to row crop production. What's interesting that is, of late, we've found that we need to see an increase in advancing conservation practices across those 23 million, especially 27 million acres as well. So often people, on this audience today are probably saying, well, how does this impact me if I live in Chicago? According to the last USDA Census of Agriculture, the largest or greatest number of farms increased in the state of Illinois took place in Cook County. So farms are right in our streets. They're in our neighborhoods. They're across every aspect and every corner of this state. Illinois is distinctively different in the sense from the north, the south, the east, to the west, from the soil types that we have and the type of production practices that we put on our grounds. And so we need to find ways to ensure that we continue to protect those vital resources, those natural resources that make agriculture the #1 industry in the state of Illinois. And so as Tara and Ted shared, they have a wonderful program in Wisconsin. And a group of us have been looking at that and watching it from afar, saying, how can we replicate that and bring that to the state of Illinois? And if we go to the next slide, I'll tell you why we're interested in this. Looks like one of the things we need to look at is the nutrient loss reduction strategy, recently reported, and the biannual report noted that basically the point source folks, the urban runoff and so forth, are attaining our goals as of 2015 to 2025. Unfortunately, the non-point source sector has a significant amount of room to improve, and we need to do more with the land that we have at our fingertips. And so, for example, of that 23 million acres, or if you even want to put in the context of our 32 total million acres, only 1.39 million acres, or 6% of that land, actually have cover crops on it. So we see an ample opportunity to basically augment and elevate our conservation practices. What we do know, and as Tara and Tony clearly outlined, producers are the ones that will drive what happens on the field. We also know that there's a tremendous amount of federal funds and an increased number of state funds coming into conservation across the nation. Our goal is to bring those resources also right here to Illinois. We have a valuable tool with our soil and water conservation districts and many of our other NGO partners dedicated to these same causes across the state. And I look at those folks as being sort of these linchpins of conservation. They're the individuals that are going to connect the producers that are going to drive the activities onto the field, to connect with these vital resources that are coming out of the federal government, state government, and we need to connect them. And that's what our program is looking at. We want to build off of what Wisconsin's done. As Tara noted, the farmers learn from farmers in Wisconsin, and they have this tremendous amount of acreage covered across the entire heart of agriculture. Based on the 2022 census data or information from out of their program in Wisconsin, it supported 1.1 million acres of conservation in 2022. That's staggering, and that's an amazing impact. We can go to the next slide. What we're looking at is how do we invest those initiatives here in Illinois? So a group of us, and I'll share who those folks are, we reached out to NRCS and we requested and submitted an application for an RCPP, a Resource Conservationist Partnership Program, seeking an investment to augment or to replicate and build upon the Wisconsin model. We received an RCPP grant for $13.8 million. And that is awarded to a 3-state region. We're partnering with Illinois, Wisconsin, and Iowa in this context. Our goal is to build upon the success of the watershed groups in Wisconsin, and we want to initiate farmer-led groups in Illinois and in Dubuque County as well, Iowa. Next slide, please. Our partners that came together with this initiative, Sands County Foundation in Wisconsin is helping us to create the group together. The Illinois Department of Agriculture in Illinois has graciously provided us with access to leveraging and partnering the Partnership for Conservation Fund. So that's one of our base matching funds through their initiatives and their cost share efforts. American Farmland Trust and the Association of Soil and Water Conservation Districts are coming together to be able to put these initiatives into action. And one of the things that we call ours a little bit different is we're calling ours a farm land network. And the reason is because in the state of Illinois, 62% of the land that we produce on is owned by the non-operator. So we also know that we need to engage the landowners. We need to engage farm managers, other entities that help to guide practices on the field. And so we will be reaching out to other audiences as well. So part of our RCPP is we had to put together something that was innovative, something that was different, and add to ours. And so I'm going to share a little bit of that as we move forward. But one of the things we're looking at is how do we reach folks that are controlling and leading efforts on those 27 million acres of land across the state of Illinois, on all farmland. Next slide, please. Notably, our goal is to improve Illinois' soil and water quality by supporting and advancing producer-led solutions that both, in essence, increase on-ground practices and farmer participation in local watershed efforts. We want to see our producers engaged in augmenting and strengthening the best management practices that will help them protect our soil, make sure that it's healthy, and keep our water clean. Next slide, please. How does it work? We will follow much along the same lines of what Tony and Tara outlined in Wisconsin. We'll provide grants that provide support to groups to deliver cost share programs through our Partners for Conservation funds, on-farm demonstration and research projects, much like what Tara outlined, and education and outreach efforts and conservation systems that basically innovative practices that improve the water quality. Sort of what Tony outlined, having those opportunities to come together with producers learning from each other as they go. Next slide, please. The Wisconsin model, as Tara noted, has at least 5 farmers, at least 1 collaborator, a county-led land conservationist. In Illinois, we call ours our soil and water conservation districts. Extension partners, DNR partners, nonprofit organization partners like AFT. And the max award in Wisconsin was $40,000 per group. Our Illinois program details are being finalized, but we will follow much of these aspects by providing these farmer-led groups, working with a collaborator, most likely through our soil and water conservation districts, as well as our nonprofit sector, and providing these grants that they will help to put initiatives forward to augment and to strengthen conservation in their local areas. Next slide, please. Notably, we will be looking at, as I talked about the nutrient loss reduction strategy, we have a lot of room that we need to be able to start improving on. And so we will prioritize improvements of local water resources, looking at the Illinois NRS goals and the Gulf of Mexico Hypoxia Task Force goals to reduce the overall hypoxic zone in the Gulf of Mexico. We want to look at it through improved soil health, continuous living cover, and retention of nutrients on farm lands. We recognize that many of these are co-benefits, and they will ultimately help strengthen both our clean water and soil. We also want to look at applied practices that will also lower the GHG emission, sequester carbon in the soil, and build farmer resilience to the impacts of climate change. Or, as we like to talk about it, how are they becoming resilient to the weather patterns that continue to impact us? Next slide, please. What we will do in Illinois is year 1, we will be piloting our initiative in these specific groups: Joe Davies County, Vermilion Waterheads. We will look at Glen Shoals, Lake Springfield, Lake Decatur, Wabash, Imbras, and so forth. What we will also be doing is one of our efforts is not just looking at watersheds, but we want to look at producers or specialty producer groups. In other words, finding the commonality in their practices. All pumpkin producers, wherever they're at in the state of Illinois, have something in common. They're growing pumpkins. All orchards. But we also see this as an opportunity to engage with our community-based farming practices. So, for example, in Chicago, if it's the largest number of farms increased in the state of Illinois, looking at urban farms regardless of their size, how can we help them understand that conservation can be a vital part of an urban community-based farm production as well? So year 1, we'll be looking at our pilot groups. Year 2 and up to year 5, we will then open up to new groups, and we will continue to provide opportunities to reach new target audiences. Final slide. As you can see here, our next steps. Currently, we're in the stage of finalizing our agreement with the NRCS. We hope to have that completed by August. While you get these funds and these grants, they're a wonderful way to get resources. They take time to negotiate. And when you're dealing with 3 states, you have to also then agree to activities that will be carried out with our supplemental agreements in each of the respective states. So we're in that process right now. We will begin to recruit for farmers in the year, one targeted networks coming forward. And then ultimately, we'll be asking everybody to join our network. We did put a QR code up here. If you want to capture that, you can connect with our programs and get on a list, and we will start to provide opportunities as this unveils in the state of Illinois. And our final slide is just sort of an opportunity we'll be framing out. Ted, if you want next, questions, I do have our information. Shelby and I will be lead contacts here in Illinois, and we would love to connect with your communities, your partners. And let's just say that producers across the greater Chicagoland area will be a vital part of our team, and we want to continue to engage those folks. So thank you so much. I'm going to turn it back over to Ted to navigate questions.
Thank you, Michael. I see we definitely have one in the chat. I'm going to save it for a moment and launch this discussion with a couple questions of my own. The first question I have is, last year was Chicago Wilderness's year of action, okay? That we had created goals, and then last year we were going to go forth and go after these goals. We don't have a theme for this year yet, but our annual gathering, the Congress in the fall of this year, is focusing on partnerships. With this as a possible theme, I'm wondering if each of you could please touch upon how Chicago Wilderness can help your partnerships, even though a lot of your partnerships are outside of our geographic range, right? Obviously, these are great ideas. We'd like to replicate it. We'd like to support them as much as possible. What are some of the unique aspects of these partnerships, and how can CWA play a role?
I can kick it off a little bit for Illinois. I can just tell you that CWA will be a central partner. Partnerships are going to make this helpful and successful. Remember, we're looking at the full state of Illinois, and Chicagoland community impacts our entire state as well on many levels. And so I think that partnership is vital. I think also what it does is help us to recognize that what happens on the farmland in rural communities does have a direct impact in our urban communities as well. And many of the practices that will come out of our project here in Illinois, our network, can also be replicated in urban communities because, again, we have vacant lands, we have urban farm food production, community-based farming, agriculture, community or urban ag. All of these efforts will unite us. The one thing that does make us common and united together, regardless of where we live in the state of Illinois, is we all eat. We all need productive agriculture to be a vibrant part of our industry, and we all want to ensure that we have healthy soils because it helps us to provide the food that we eat. And ultimately, we all want to ensure that we have clean water, whether that be in downtown Chicago or all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico.
Tara, Tony, you got anything to better that? That seemed pretty good to me.
I can't better it, but I would add on top of it. We have to remember that anybody who eats is a consumer of farm products. And so by encouraging, even Chicago residents to understand thinking about their food locally, as Tony said, having that premium on grass-fed beef and making it more valuable to the farmer is really what engages a lot of farmers to feel like they can make that jump into more sustainable practices. And then we really need more markets. When we talk to farmers, they say, I would love to diversify. What else could I possibly grow? So we really need to understand how we can get cities like Chicago, Minneapolis, Green Bay, everywhere, having a better structure so that the farmers aren't locked into just a couple of commodity crops. So that would be another huge part. And then also many of the organizations that we work with have national branches. I'm a member of the Wisconsin Farmers Union. That's part of National Farmers Union. We would love more support from Farm Bureau, but also American Farmland Trust, all the farming organizations. But we get lots of support from the McKnight Foundation, the Nature Conservancy, all sorts of groups that are aware of the impact that farmland has. And so continually working with those groups and keeping it on their radar, the importance of working with the majority of our acres is really impactful.
Yeah, that's why I agree with Tara. Well, you need that support out there as a farmer and starting this group up years ago. It's very important to have that support. We had a good LandCon person, like say Jared Winters with me. You need some support once in a while. You don't you want to. When I started the group up, farmers don't want to be led by governmental people. And I've always I lead I MC all the meetings, I take care of it myself, but you need that support of a governmental or your different land conservations to help you with all your projects. But you always need to make sure that the farmers are stressing that it's farmer led and you're getting the support, but you need that support group out there, LandCon, and that's got to be supporting, saying, hey, we're going to support the farmers. We're not going to start the groups up. A lot of these groups that end up getting started by a conservation department or a push for something that had to get started, then they pull some farmers in quick on a TMDL project or something. The farmers struggle. They don't know why they're being involved and why they got to participate in this, but they got to get the TMDL funding. So they got to have the farmers participate. So it's very important that the farmers lead and the farmers start this.
You know, and I can, if I can too. So, hi, I'm Jared Winter. I with the Dodge County Land Conservation Department, and I can kind of speak to kind of the government side, kind of the supporting side with like Tony here. So, I mean, for me, like the biggest part whenever I work with the Dodge County Farmers Group, and I've helped work with a few things very minorly with other farmer groups in the area. The thing is, it's support. It's however, you know, Tony and some of these other farmers, however they need or whatever they need for support, I provide it wherever I can. Like, so today Tony called me and he said, "Hey, can you help me set up for a Zoom meeting?" No idea I was going to do that today, but
Yeah.
I'm here to try to help support these farmers groups, you know, and honestly, from a government perspective, seeing what these farmers are doing themselves and promoting this to their peers, it's a huge boon for even what I do. So, I mean, this is, you know, I mean, I'd love to help them any way I can and support them. You know, at the end of the day, they're the ones making the decisions. They're the ones saying, this is how we want to do it. This is what we want to do. Land conservation, Jared, whoever, you know, UW Extension, you know, our university here, you know, any of these other groups that we're working with, or they're working with. Here's what we need you to do. Here's what we need help with. How can you help us? And, you know, we're all over that where we can. So, I guess from my perspective here, that's kind of what I see too. I'll turn it back to Tony here.
Tony, you have more to say? Okay. I want to get to the chat and then I want to honor Maggie's hand up. So let's go to the chat first. Steve, if you want to unmute and ask your question, that would be great. If not, I'm happy to read it, whichever works best for you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
For Michael, if someone in Chicago owns farmland, what can they do to help with the effort to get cleaner water?
Well, and I think that, you know, that's a great question, Steve. I think the key thing that we need to be looking at is what defines farmland, right? Because farmland can also be rooftops, can be community gardens, can be backyard gardens, could be vacant lots. So farmland needs to be very holistic in its approach to looking at that. So there are many opportunities that we can continue to look at how we provide our soil and our land should be growing 24/7, right? It should be constantly growing and developing and nurturing environments. So you can put in various conservation activities, you can put in pollinator plots, you can even do Miyawaki farms, fast growing forests that help to reduce the heat that often happens in a large urban area. But all of that then helps to reduce or filter our water, whether that be from stream water runoff, it could be from flooding, it could be from just application of various activities you put to soil amendments and so forth. So those are the kind of things that we can do. We just need to have break down what it means to be a farmer. Farmers do not necessarily have a stereotypical image of only being our rural communities. We have them across every single one of our 1,300 plus urban, metropolitan communities in the state of Illinois. We have them in downtown, Chicago, growing vegetables in freight farms, and all of those activities together can contribute to helping to ensure that our water runs clean. And I might just add one little plug for our soil and water conservation districts. We have amazing staff all throughout the entire state that are just primed and ready to continue to help put those practices in the field and on the ground.
I know that question was directed to Michael, but Tara and Tony, do you want to have a moment to add anything?
Yeah, it needs to be covered. I mean, that dust storm you had down there with all the accidents, that farmer is liable. I don't care what they say. They push on everybody else, but dang it all, we got to cover the soil. You cannot let the soil be bare. It's got to have a green living cover crop on it 24/7. These farmers in Illinois got to understand you got to get the soil covered. They feel, I've talked to them before, and they feel like they got so much topsoil, they don't need to do anything like that. And also some of the down in Springfield, I talked to a major farmer a few years ago. I bought some equipment from them, and they rent a lot of the land. And some of these landowners want the soil black in winter and don't understand. I mean, my God, come on, people, we got to protect our soil. It's got to be covered. It's got to have a living root. It's got to be biologically alive. Once you understand biological living soil, you don't even want to walk on your soil if you understand there's so much organism. In a teaspoon of soil, there's more living organisms than there is people on Earth. Well, come on, you need the earthworms. You need our biology. We don't need to be out there with big tractors ripping everything up. It frustrates me.
Amen, Tony. Preach. I totally support you on that.
Yeah, I tried.
I think we know your sentiments. Do you want to add anything?
I would just say in consideration of urban farmers, we have a fair amount of experience with that at the Farmers Union. I'm talking fast because I see us running out of time, but the infiltration and flood control is a huge part of in terms of climate mitigation, but also of clean water. We have to remember that once you have flooding, you are putting all sorts of extra nutrients into that water. So it's a huge factor. We see that in Los Angeles. They understand it in the West more, but it's going to be more and more of an issue here. Also, the other consideration with urban farming and farmland in suburban areas, I'm from the exurbs of Minneapolis. We have a fair number of farmers who feel that they don't have to invest in their soil because they're expecting a housing development to come and regrade it after they're gone, and the top 6 inches will be gone anyway. So there is a real campaign that needs to happen with our area farmers surrounding metropolitan areas to understand that your farm is not lost after your 40 harvests or whatever. So that is it's a pretty important campaign because it's going to really affect those communities within the next 10 years here.
Maggie, thank you for your patience. Go ahead.
Anybody who knows me knows the words that are going to come out of my mouth right now, and that is what watershed plans, particularly up in Wisconsin, are being done at those Huck 12 scale, because I know what kind of watershed plans are being done in Illinois. Not enough in the ag area, but what are you doing to push the actual planning for your areas?
We don't push anything. Sorry. Oh yeah, I'll let you take this one, Jared. You know better than me.
Yeah, well, no, and I mean, yeah, so I guess from our point of view, so I guess speaking on the farmers side of things, when they're doing the actual conservation work, they're helping to pay for some of these conservation practices through this DATCAP funding and other funding. So they're talking to their peers themselves. Otherwise, as far as planning to do stuff, and whatnot. So the conservation departments here, we actually have funding through DATCAP and DNR ourselves to go out and promote that. And so, like for my case, I'm a engineering technician, so I deal with a lot of the more like structural stuff, and dealing with grass waterways, buffers, anything like that, shoreline protection. I'm also a grazing planner. So I mean, we go through, we have a couple of different specific watershed areas, critical watersheds in Dodge County that we have written plans for and, work to implement specifically in that, along with the rest of the county itself. So that's kind of the planning that we do. So we're doing some of that work and inventorying and whatnot. We put those plans together. But that's sort of like the kind of watershed based planning that we have.
So I'm sorry, but very specifically, are you working with the IEPA 9 elements plans that would then qualify you for the planning and implementation funding as another source?
So yeah, you mean like the 9 key element plans that the DNR kind of implement? Yeah. So
okay, here in Illinois, it's the IEPA, but yes.
Okay. Yeah. So kind of the same thing. But yeah, we have 2 plans like that in Dodge County itself. So we have that and funding through that, or have the ability to get funding through those programs. So we've done the work on that. So we're in the process of doing that. So, we talk to landowners and we say, hey, we don't usually say, hey, we've got all this money we want to spend. It's usually more like, hey, how can we help you? Every farm there's always something that we can do to try to improve something here. We're more than happy to help. So that's kind of where we're at in those plans right now, but we do have those implemented. But we have, you know, just 2 very priority watersheds. One of them kind of surrounding one of our lakes in Dodge County. But otherwise, you know, we've got funding for, you know, stuff to do all over the county. So it's kind of, we have all this, you know, sources that we can pull from, and it just helps us. It's a little confusing for when we were trying to, you know, get stuff documented and whatnot. But at the end of the day, what it gives us the opportunity to do is whoever we're talking to, we have some ability to help them out. We have the ability to work with them on any kind of program, or there's at least some kind of program that we can work with them on. But we did that because it does give us the opportunity to, you know, really get some good funding from our DNR up here, and really hit home some of these great practices. And that includes not just, you know, the waterways and whatnot that I work on too, but also nutrient management and cover crops, reduced tillage, all of it, everything. So that's kind of what we have here. I didn't mean to ramble a little bit, but Tara, do you have anything you wanted to add on that?
So we do, I have 2 TMDL zones that I work in. Now, Huck 12 is a very small part of a larger TMDL for Lake St. Croix and the Red Cedar watershed. We have been able to leverage some surface management implementation plan grants through the DNR, actually to support my position as a coordinator, and then they've used that as a match for the 319 funding for the state. So there are some ways that we've been able to use that. If you look at the 9 key element plans for those 2 watersheds, they were created in the mid-teens, and at that point, farmer-led councils were early in their, they were just kind of an idea. People were playing around with it. So in those TMDLs, they actually reference farmer-led councils as part of the implementation that they were going to use to get to the goals that they were trying to reach. They, at that time, it was very vague because they really didn't know what to expect, and they really placed a lot of emphasis on it without a lot of foundational expectation of what that would actually be. But it's definitely part of the bigger picture process of how they're incorporated into the TMDLs right now. They're using them and they're trying to implement with support through them, and work them into the bigger picture of the policy around the state, if that helps at all.
Ted, I might add something on to Maggie's. Within Illinois, I mean, we have as Maggie noted, you know, that HUC 12 level, we've got to do some more things. And NRCS recognizes that as well. And they've reached out to the association and would like to see the SWCDs across the state to begin to really augment and strengthen its local working groups. The local working groups sort of serve as this foundation to NRCS's conservation programs and their delivery processes. It also supports locally led conservation efforts by coordinating USDA programs with other federal, state, and local conservation programs, you know, to provide an integrated solution to addressing those natural resource concerns. And it helps to, if we get to it, get down to those EPA criteria, those 9 minimum elements of successful watershed plans, you know, from identifying causes and solutions of pollution to estimate the loads of reduction expectations, describe management measures and targeted critical areas, estimate technical and financial assistance needs, developing an information and education component, develop a project schedule, describe interim and measurable milestones, identify indicators to measure progress, and then ultimately develop and monitor components. So if we are able to get a stronger local working groups established and advanced through our SWCD systems, I think we can help to meet that need, Maggie, at the HUC 12 and even at the HUC 8 level.
I have witnessed in the Huron River, I'm sorry, southeast Michigan, and there, it's not an agricultural farmer-led watershed group, but it is a watershed group that's been in existence, I want to say 50 years, and the partnerships in that really go all the way across the board with farmers, with government, with chambers of commerce, with industry, with local grassroots efforts. And part of their power is, as we've all noted, is that it is through the concerted effort of partnerships that really gets the work done. And, as I said, anybody who's heard me in the past knows that getting watershed plans in place. You can keep throwing stuff against the wall and hoping it sticks, but if you have a plan in place, you get that much further. That's all. Thank you.
All right, everybody, I note we are at 1:04. We are past time, but no one has left yet. So that means that this is either a really compelling conversation or that no one has anything else to do. I'm not sure which. That said, can I get the guests to stay on for a couple more minutes? Okay, we have a couple more things in the chat. Let's aim to close this down about 1:15. And if you have somewhere to be, please, by all means, go somewhere. We're recording this. You can always catch up later. We'll send out the slides and discussions after the fact. Okay, so Cindy on the chat says, what is the name of the new Illinois, Iowa, Wisconsin RCCP? Is there a fact sheet available yet? She'd love to share it. They're holding their 12th annual bi-state summit on March 14th. Will it be ready for that date? Michael.
Absolutely. And I just sent Cindy a private message also to let her know, but we will, right now it's tentatively going to be called the Illinois Farmland Network. We're working on those details. There isn't a full fact sheet yet because we're still waiting on getting everything finalized with NRCS. But I would love to share that story with the Fox River Group. I know that a dear friend of mine, Dean Farr, will be presenting at that and sharing insights. And so anything we can do to help connect with audiences, Cindy, please let me know. We'll be glad to support that resource. More to come though.
And I want to make a nod to Maggie and also Laura. You know, I launched this early on by talking about this is our year of partnerships, but Laura pointed out that, you know, the actual theme is stronger together, building climate resilience through partnerships. So, you know, this is a very germane conversation. And with that, unless there are any other people that have hands to raise or questions, I'd love to know sort of what success looks like for each of you in the next 2 to 5 years. Is it turning that those gray areas to blue on the Wisconsin map? Is it taking over the world? What is it? What, you know, is it engaging a sector we haven't even discussed yet, like Maggie said? I don't know. I'd just be curious to hear what the next couple of years look like.
I'll let Tara and Tony kick it off first, since the Wisconsin side.
Okay, this is Tony. Right, good. Well, a lot of it we're trying to constantly increase. You know, our goal is the next 5 years to get 50% of the tillable land here in our county and covers. So that's part of it. But we got to continue. We know our food nutrition value, it sucks, and we got to get away from a lot of this GMO products and start reducing our chemicals. So it's in the next 10 years, we've got something to do here. I was at some meetings and our graph is not going in our direction. We've got to get better quality food produced, and the consumer needs to know that and specify it and require, you know, better quality food. And the farmers hopefully need to be able to produce this by reducing the costs of their production, but getting a better product out there, which I know we can do by regenerative agriculture, by putting covers, less tillage. I noticed that in our farming operation, it completely changed me over the years, how much less work it is and how much better of a quality of your crops are and everything by reducing the tillage and going to no-till and covers and growing better crops. So we're constantly in our group trying to better ourselves and get more people involved and spread the word. And it's education. Right now I get calls from all over the place, and we got to educate. We got to put a program on. The farmers do that. Get the farmers there and give them a program and get them a little bit of education every time. And hopefully they'll continue to learn this and to continue forward. Because right now it's just too hard. You know, it's a problem we got to work with, and we got to try to solve it.
We asked our groups of farmers to define what success looks like, and it's not their favorite thing to come up with long-term plans. One of our groups there is another group interested that's adjacent to the Farmer-Led Council that's interested in increasing the number of pastured acres on existing cropland by about 2,000 acres within the Red Cedar Basin. So their goal and success to them looks like expanding the grass-fed meat infrastructure and marketing process so that we can support more farmers at smaller scale. Another one of my groups says they just want the guys who are tilling to feel like they're the outsiders rather than the guys who are no tilling to feel like they're the outsiders. So that's very common, to feel like they just want the narrative and the community common practices to change. Like Tony was saying, we need more people just adopting this stuff and just doing it as if that's the random expectation. Another one of my groups is really focused on buffers. They live in heavier soils and they have trouble getting no-till to work, and so they're really focused on adding buffers. So they just said yesterday they'd like to see a 10% increase in the number of buffered acres along, and get every acre of cropland buffered 30 to 70 feet away from the dry run, but their waterway. So success to me means that we continue to have growth in these councils and they continue to have a vision for what they want. Of course, that's dependent on having mid-sized farmers because we're only working with 17 to 22,000 acre watersheds in our small groups. And so we need to make sure that there's enough farmers there who can collaborate and learn from each other. And if we continue to see the bigger and bigger markets only providing for the biggest farmers, that's a real challenge for us.
Yeah, and for me, I would add that, over the course of the next 5 years, we want to see this program strengthen and get more producers engaged. As I noted, we have about 1.39 million acres of Illinois land, 6% currently covered with cover crops. I'd like to see a goal of by 40% of the land covered by 2040. That's only 16 growing seasons away. If you start to really think about that, that's a very short period of time in the lifespan of agriculture. We must note that it took many years, decades, to get to this place where we're at. So it's not going to happen overnight to make that kind of change on 32 million acres. But if we could have 40% of our acreage, it looks at somewhere around 12.8 million to 9.2 million acres covered with cover crops. That would be the ultimate goal, if I were the emperor of the world. But at the same time, I also want to just see more engagement, that there's this divide between the urban and rural is bridged, to showcase that everybody is truly committed to ensuring that our soil is healthy, regardless if you live on asphalt or if you want to see clean water wherever you live in the state of Illinois. And so if we continue to have those successful visions together, I think we can attain that. And ultimately, I would say that we need to just find a way to ensure that everybody understands and the producers shift their practices to ensure that we are protecting the most important aspect of the agricultural industry, at least in Illinois and many other states, and that's our vital natural resources. We have got to protect them. We cannot take them for granted, and we cannot just continue to augment them with more soil amendments. We have to protect them. The Mother Nature, or however you want to call it, created this amazing resource for us. We have to leave something better for the next generation. I have 4 children, and I don't want to, on my deathbed, be one of those type of people saying, I wish I would have done better.
That sounds like a pretty good vision of success to me, and a pretty good place to end our time together, unless there are 1 or 2 last questions. But I'm good with that. That's nicely robust and happy. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Tara. I don't know what else to add.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate the fact that the Chicago Wilderness Alliance, took this on and is sharing with your audience. What a great tribute for what you want to do for the community. And thank you so much to our Wisconsin partners for leading the way. You've created something that is a truly replicable opportunity for us. And in Illinois, we hope we do you right.
And also, this is Tony. You can follow us on Facebook and a web page for Dodge County Farmers. And a lot of our farmer groups have got Facebook pages and websites. And just continue to follow us, dodgecountyfarmers.com or Dodge County Farmers on Facebook. And we post a lot of the presentations and stuff we do. And it's a good social media. And we got a lot of the farmers on it. They do share a lot of the good practices we do out there. And hopefully city people and everybody can start watching us and support us. They become to, just thank us and support and tell the other people that we got to be supporting our farmers out there. We got to work together to get a better product to them. So it takes a lot of work.
Thank you. And I was remiss in not thanking Jared also.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Jared.
Yeah.
So to that end, Tony, I'd love to invite you to just fill out a partner, like, you know, we have like reciprocal partnerships. If you want to fill out a partnership for Chicago Wilderness Alliance, to be able to get your information out there and be a part of the discussions that the Growing with Ag team and other watershed teams will, prioritizing healthy water, will be having. I think it's really important. We will be having a Congress in the fall, November 15th. And I would love to hear more about the work that you're doing in future presentations. Please consider continuing to share and update your stories with us, because I feel like this was really inspiring on many levels. And I want to continue to find ways to sort of amplify and spotlight the great work that you're doing. So thank
Yeah,
you
you can
for
also,
being a part of this.
you can pull me up on Facebook. I've got a lot of Facebook videos, and also we did a video for our group and explaining our group and why we accomplished it. It's on our website, I think, too, and our Facebook page. So just pull, yeah, YouTube, pull my name up, and I've done a lot of interviews across the United States. I've been interviewed by London, England, called me and did an interview with them, the Economist newspaper and publishing company, and they were doing a story on ocean pollution and what farmers are doing here in the United States. So it's been an interesting journey, but it's just a lot of good information out there. People go on YouTube and look at our website, and it's just information you can have out there, and just shows us what we're doing and how people can accomplish this.
Will do.
Tony, you're
Will
gonna
do.
make
Awesome.
Tony, you're gonna make me want to go back on Facebook. I swore it off for Lent, but now I have to go back on.
Yeah, as much
Thank
as,
you.
well, I gotta help Jared with that, because I was never on Facebook when I started our group. I didn't believe in that stuff. And then Jared here has been a really outstanding person to help us over the years. And he said, you know, it's gonna be a free web, you know, a platform, big promotional platform to use. And we use it that way. That's all I use it for. But there's a lot of information. And if YouTube and all my interviews and videos I've done, it's kind of comical. I got from different people saying, "No, you're all over YouTube," you know. And I said, well, I don't plan on being there. I did an interview with No Till magazine. I've been on the cover of No Till magazine and stuff. So there's different stuff you can read about me, read my stories, read the different articles I've been on. And it's just good information for everybody. I'm not bragging about it, but it's information for other people out there to understand and see what we're doing up here and what we're trying to accomplish.
Excellent. Well, thank you all again.
You. Bye.
Yeah.